While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow. 508-996-0500. Again, at 9 o'clock, New Bedford City Councilor at Large Ian Heroux is going to join us. So he's going to respond to Mayor Mitchell's State of the City address, or just talk to us. Just talk to us about it and some of the things that were said in it. And looking forward to talking with Councilor Heroux. Until then, I can take your calls and take your app chat messages, but you can call me at 508-996-0500, or if you have the WBSM app. If you don't have it, you should download it and send us a message on the WBSM app. So, I was at the Bristol County House of Correction today. Bristol County, you may have heard it. If you haven't, the podcast is available on the app anywhere podcasts are offered. I spoke with Bristol County Sheriff Paul Heroux, who has had quite a few media availabilities in his early months as the Bristol County Sheriff. But one of them was regarding the jail standoff that happened. And before you say, why don't you call it a riot? Call it a riot. I don't care. It's fine. Call it a riot. So, just do it. Just do it. Call it a riot. But I'm not going to. If you want to tell me why it's a riot too, give me a call. 508-996-0500. That's how you can join us this evening. So, since in the couple weeks leading to that standoff, we've had Sheriff Heroux on to talk more about the incident. He released pictures, I think, the very next day, or maybe a couple days later, on the condition of the cell unit of the housing units GA and GB that were where these agitating inmates, the inmates that were the agitators of this incident, that's where they were held, in GA and GB. And I believe it was GB was the one that was totally, absolutely trash. You saw some pictures. You can check it out on WBSM.com, a look inside the units. I got a closer look. They allowed us in the units. And so I went in. It is trash. It's pretty gross. Some of the windows are broken. They said it's between $100,000 and $200,000 damages. There's just stuff all over the place. There isn't like a half a foot of flooring that doesn't have some sort of debris or paper towels or whatever. And there's just stuff hanging from the ceiling. It is quite a mess. It is pretty bad. The other unit in GA, which was also the subject of this incident, but to a lesser degree, was actually pretty clean. So in the GA unit, we got to walk in. The GB unit, we got to walk in, and we couldn't go beyond a certain perimeter because, it was basically, this special investigation still that's an active crime scene. Special investigation still has to do their thing. And so we just were able to take some pictures. In GB, it was pretty clean, so they let us walk wherever we wanted in that unit. It was empty. I got to take some pictures of the cells and all that stuff. And it was a lot more open. So he wanted to show us, I think for the sake of transparency, he invited members of the media, and just about, I was there for WBSM, but just about every single media outlet in the greater New Bedford and even some in Boston. Every single media outlet in the Boston market was there. They were represented, right? And so there was a lot of people. And, people wanted to take a look inside, be inside, report on it. And so he had talked more about the incident, like he had said before. One of the reasons he wanted to move people is because one of the reasons he had wanted to move people was because he wanted to put some toilets in the cells and locks on the doors. He has a plan to close Ash Street. The plan is one of the reasons they can't house certain members of certain one of the reasons Ash Street still exists, right? Basically, as an active prison or an active jail, the oldest operating jail in the country. Right. One of the reasons it operates as the oldest operating jail in the country is because there are about 96 or so inmates that are being held there, and a lot of them have to be held in single cells for certain reasons, certain considerations, whether it be a mental health consideration or whether it be some type of gang affiliation. They have to have single cell accommodations, whereas most other inmates have, the double bunk cells. So they have to have the single cells. But one of the things that they can do in Dartmouth is to, put locks on the doors in order to be able to have that single cell accommodation. It's kind of funny. He said that when this jail was built, I think he said it was in the 80s. When this jail was built, it was built by a contractor who had built colleges, college like dormitories and college campuses. And he said that they basically wanted like a college campus feel to it, right? For some reason. And so they made it like a dormitory style where I don't know how many of you had stayed in a college dorm, but when you're like when you stay in the freshman dorms or whatever, usually it's the freshman dorms, or the lower class dorms. They've got the usually two people to a room, and then there's a common bathroom, right? There's a common area bathroom where everybody uses, and a common shower and all of that, where everybody uses that. But in order to put the locks on the doors to make the single cell accommodation, they also need to have toilets in their cells. He had talked about how basically you cannot have a lock on the door without toilets in the cells. It's a violation. He talked about a court case, I believe in Massachusetts, said it was a violation of the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, if you don't put a toilet in a cell with the doors locked, because, what if people have to go to the bathroom at night, right? And they're locked in for 8 hours or whatever. He said it's a violation of their Eighth Amendment right, which I actually agree with. The sheriff agrees with. I think it's a pretty fair reading of the Eighth Amendment. So, they said they're going to be able to, with these units that they want to convert for Ash Street, they're going to be able to convert them. They're going to be able to convert 2 or 3 units using the canteen money that they have, right? So they have $1.6 million that they've made from their canteen, which is, if you're familiar with a jail canteen, it's like goods that you can buy basically in the jail, certain foods and things like that. And so they said they have $1.6 million in their budget, which should cover the cost of putting locks in toilets in the cells of a few units, not all the units, but a few units, in order to make them single cell accommodations and move people from Ash Street to Dartmouth and close the Ash Street jail. And from there, so the state can do whatever they want with the Ash Street jail. It's the state's property. They can do what they want with it. I think tear it down, build housing, frankly. I think it's a legacy we can move on from. I know it's the oldest operating jail and all that, but I think it's a legacy we can move on from. But anyway, he said one of the reasons they're moving is because they don't want to go somewhere with locked doors, right? They don't want to go somewhere with locked doors. They protested that, and they started, acting or 20 or so of them that they identified, started acting in a very vacuous manner. And that's how that unit, GB, ended up being trashed. That was the response to not wanting to move and not wanting to be put in locked door cells. Now, you talked about this, and it makes a lot of sense that it doesn't really make sense to not have a jail like that where there aren't locked doors, right? Aren't locked cells. Especially when you consider he listed some of the crimes that some of these inmates had been on trial for. Everybody in these units are people awaiting trial, by the way. But he talked about some of them who were frequent flyers in the system, and some of them had been were awaiting trial on some serious crimes, some murders, some fentanyl trafficking, cocaine trafficking. Those all carry some pretty hefty mandatory minimum sentences. So he said that this is a problem that's actually unique to the Bristol County Sheriff's Department. He said when he spoke, there's 13 sheriffs. There are 13 sheriff's departments, right? So 13 county sheriffs or regional sheriffs in all of the Commonwealth, and they're all tasked with running the local jail systems of their region, right? From Western Mass all the way down to the Cape. And he said 50-something% of the jails in Dartmouth do not have locks on the doors, which he said doesn't make any sense. And I think most people agree. It doesn't make any sense. It's not like a feasible way to run a jail. And he said that it's a problem that's unique to Bristol County because none of the other 13 county sheriffs or regional sheriffs in the Commonwealth have this specific issue where most of their cells or even any of their cells don't have locks on doors. So it's not something that it's not something when he's lobbying the state for more money to put locks on all the doors throughout the Dartmouth jail. But he said it's a problem that's just unique to Bristol County. So it's something that should be prioritized and he thinks can be prioritized. So with respect to the incident, right? There were some state reps there today. Tony Cabral was there from New Bedford. Carol Doherty, state rep from Taunton, who I've had on the show a few times. And Rep. Adam Scanlon, who's the state rep for North Attleboro, also in Bristol County, of course. And so they were there. And then there was a general counsel who was there on behalf of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which Rep. Scanlon sits on. Rep. Hendricks and Rep. Markey also sit on it as well. He had invited the chair of the Judiciary, Mike Day. He couldn't make it. He sent the staff or the general counsel from the State House Judiciary Committee there to sort of observe and hear the sheriff out on this. So after he shows us the units, and then we got to look around at everything in the really trash cell, and there was one that wasn't that bad. And then he brought us back to they have sort of a press conference room, which is not behind the secured, because he took us beyond the secured perimeter, which, it requires a little bit of security checks and stuff like that, and to check in our equipment if we had cameras and all that stuff, and have our licenses and pre-register. But then we went back outside the secure perimeter to the press room, and that's where he had presented to us the video. It was a 2.5-minute video Obviously not a video of the whole incident or even, the whole response to the incident. But it was a particular thing he thought was important about how everything went down. And he had said, this is actually corrections. Just pull up I think I'd written down the quote. I had my voice recorder, but I didn't upload the footage from it, unfortunately, the voice recorder. So he had said, this is corrections at its finest, because basically, he'd said that it was the way that this whole thing was resolved was very peaceful and very orderly, which actually from the observations I saw, it was. So what they showed was the first clip was the unit, essentially like a SWAT unit that went in. They were all geared up. They were all kitted out in their gear. I think there's a picture of it on WBSM.com. Heroux standing in the unit going in. I think there's a picture of it on WBSM.com, but they're walking in and then they show a clip of everybody getting taken out. Now there's some gas in there. There's some, you can see the sort of the gas that's in the air, and that is, CS gas, which he says is an irritant. It's like, Tabasco. He called it, what do you compare it to? He compared CS gas to, he said it's an irritant. He said it's an irritant. He says it's like getting a whole, spoonful of Tabasco sauce, basically. So there were some inmates that were coughing and all that on their way out. Obviously, the correctional officers were wearing masks to protect themselves from the gaseous irritant. And so they were walking. So they were all. What I saw was obviously it was in that trash unit. The unit was trashed, and they were all the COs were basically holding people by the arm and calmly walking them out of the building. They were all. There was zero signs of resistance from anybody. There were zero signs of resistance. There wasn't a lot of yelling or raucousness. There wasn't a lot of. There wasn't any sort of physical. There wasn't any sort of physical or even verbal confrontation between the officers and the inmates that were being brought out, and they were all in cuffs. So it was pretty quiet. It was pretty orderly. And so one of the things that he had pointed out was because I think he had compared it last time to an incident that happened in the ICE standoff between the ICE detainees in 2020 and the sheriff's office, where there was a guy who said, I can't get on my knees. I've got bad knees. My knees hurt. And then, eventually he got swept down by the officers. He got his face pressed against the fence. And then there's point of contention. Sheriff Hodgson felt a different way about how this looked. But what I saw, it looked like an officer was walking a dog up to the guy's face near the who was pressed up against the fence. And he said he could have put him backwards. There were other ways to resolve that situation. They didn't want to do it that way. He had said that was one of the things that he had taken a point of contention with. He had pointed out that there was a guy, and I saw it. There was a guy with multiple handcuffs behind his back. So he had one cuff. He had a cuff. He had a cuff. So he had his hands behind his back, really to his sides, and a cuff was linked to a cuff. That was linked to a cuff that was linked to the other side of, his left and right arm. So there was a series of cuffs linking it. And the reason he said is because that person has bad shoulders. He has a shoulder issue, right? And so he said instead of just extending his arms behind his back and potentially making that shoulder problem, exacerbating his shoulder problem, he said it was very calmly resolved by the corrections officers, cuffing the handcuffs together and walking that guy out. Sheriff Heroux had said, this is corrections at its finest. That's how he defined it. This is corrections at its finest. I was very proud of the way that this was done. He had said there's a lot of criticisms about how he had handled the situation from his detractors, because they said he should have brought in the dogs. He should have went in, he should have went in full throttle immediately. He should have did this. He waited too long. And he said, no, we waited just the right amount of time because we allowed the situation to subside. We were able to go in. We were able to show force, but not use force. So they were able to show the force they had, the overwhelming force they had against the inmates. So said they didn't have to use force against the inmates, and that allowed them to be calmly escorted out. That was his take on the situation. That's what he had said to us. 508-996-0500. Let's go to the phones. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Marcus.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going. I know you want to talk about the House of Corrections, but what about the crime in the city here?
What about
the shootings? What about it? And the drug dealing? And then I heard on your radio station that Police Chief Oliveira applied for a chief job in Falmouth.
Yeah,
but he didn't make the list.
I had heard that as well. I like Chief Oliveira a lot. I think he's a great guy, by the way.
He's a great guy. What does that tell you when he applies for police chief elsewhere?
That's another job. Wants to go change the scenery.
More to than another job. He doesn't want to be micromanaged.
I can't speak to. I can't speak to the specific reasons he wants to go. He hasn't said them.
I'm just saying, connect the dots.
Yeah,
he's not happy. He's not happy here.
Maybe he's not happy here. Maybe he likes the Cape. I don't know.
He likes the Cape. Well, I'm just saying.
No, I get it. I do get it because, when you have the chief of police wanting to transfer out, it always looks like, it must be because it's such a nightmare in this place that they want to get out. Why do they want to get out? I mean, there could be other reasons behind that. You look at what happened with Thomas Anderson when he left the school department. I think there were some arguments that, he's, leaving leaving the school department because who would want to be here? But he actually just had an opportunity that he had preferred more. And it wasn't.
His opportunity was he went to East Hartford that's where he was born and raised.
Yeah.
He's going back home, but that's different because we know that police chief, the former Joseph Cadero was being micromanaged by the mayor. So much so that one time we were supposed to meet up with a city council and a public safety committee, which Brian Gomes.
I remember that. I do remember that incident. That was really bad. I do remember that.
And Joseph Cadero reassured Brian Gomes he would be there at the last minute because Hank Turgeon was there.
Yes.
He ended up changing and it was a no-show because he received a call from the mayor.
So
go ahead.
So. Just for background on that, just for people may not be familiar, because it was 2 years. That was 2 years ago now. The chief of there was a Hugh Dunn at the time had filed these public safety motions. One was for ShotSpotter. One was for to basically calling for an audit of ShotSpotter. One was about reporting crimes or making crime data more publicly available. And there's another one I can't remember. They wanted to have the head of the union. Hank Turgeon. They wanted to have the head of the union at the time, Hank Turgeon, on to talk about that stuff. And they wanted to have the chief of police at a hearing in public safety. This was going to be done remotely, and it was done remotely. And I remember the chief was supposed to be there, and then at the 11th hour, he pulled. He was pulled, or he either pulled out himself or he was pulled out by the mayor. One of the reasons I think they cited was they didn't think it was appropriate for the chief and the head of the union to be there at the same time, something like that.
Marcus,
I do remember that.
At the time, it was also stated that he received a phone call, Chief Cadero, because he gave his word to Brian Gomes is going to show up in a no-show, talk about crime in the city and the shootings in broad daylight. And, the hierarchy rule is where you can manipulate the crime numbers. And he said, basically, from my understanding, it was reported on your station was because, like you said, the former president of the New Bedford Police Union was there. that the mayor felt it was a conflict of interest or whatever, at the time. That's why he didn't want him to be there.
Well, they asked, maybe it was because the CBA was still going on. I can't remember the exact reasons it was cited, but I do remember how ticked off the council was that they thought they were going to be able to talk to the chief as well, and then they'd essentially been pulled at the 11th hour. I remember talking to Councillor Gomes specifically, and he was pretty upset about it. He was incensed about the whole thing.
Right. So this is not like Thomas Anderson that's going back. He's going back home. Paul Oliveira, the police chief, he wants out of here because he probably feels he's being smothered and he can't do his job. He can't turn around without the mayor telling him what he can and can't do.
Well, I mean, a couple of things with that. One, I just don't know the dynamics between the mayor and the police chief, specifically with Paul and Mayor Mitchell. I'm not familiar with it. And there's probably only two people that are. That's Mayor Mitchell and the police chief. The other, and I don't know why Chief Oliveira wanted to. I don't know the specific reasons why you wanted to leave. He hasn't said anything publicly. He probably won't. I don't think he will.
You had a couple of weeks ago, last month rather, the new president of the police department,
Evan Bielski
union. Yeah, he was on there and he was telling you that the administration doesn't want the information to be put out to the public.
I do
saying
remember
that it's going to compromise investigations, which is a bunch of baloney.
Yeah,
the new president went on to say they do it in other communities so they can help them find criminals.
Yeah, I do remember that. They said they were being told by the New Bedford Police Administration to not talk about these specific crimes.
Well, the mayor, you mean, the corner office.
Yeah, I mean, it's the mayor's. I mean, the mayor is elected to be the chief executive of the city, right? So if he has directives for the police department, if he has directives for the fire department, if he has directives for the DPI, that's well within his right to issue those directives. He is the elected official. It's actually something that we expect from the mayor, to the extent that, he's hamstringing the chief's ability to do his job, or he's issuing too much directives. I can't speak to that, but I will say, obviously, the mayor's in charge of the police department. It's one of the reasons people vote for their mayor.
That, Marcus, that's elementary. We know that. But I'm just saying, when you have a police chief, like the new police chief, that's looking elsewhere for a job, there's underlying currents. To me, it looks like, he's had it and he wants out. Yeah. Now, we could say, well, it's the city is very busy in Falmouth. It's probably not, as much as the city of New Bedford. But I'm just telling you, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's not that I agree with for sure. It's always optically it doesn't ever look good when you got a chief executive like that wants to that's trying to transfer out, no matter what the reasons may be, whether it be because maybe he wants to go to a smaller town like Falmouth, maybe he likes the Cape. I don't know. Maybe he goes.
One more thing, Marcus.
I don't know.
What I'm saying, how long has he been there? About a year and a half.
Chief Cadero left shortly after that whole thing. It was like summer of 2021, spring of 2021.
All right, so let's say 2 years for the sake of conversation. So he's been here a short period of time, and now he wants out.
It's been 2 years.
Right, so 2 years, short period of time, now he wants out. Now, if he was there 10 years, you say, he wants...
I mean, he's been with the department a long time, because he was the deputy chief before he was the chief.
Right. But I'm just saying an administrative position like he is now, the police chief. Mm-hmm. I mean, outside the mayor, he's the head of the police department. Yeah. But I'm saying 2 years, and now he wants out. Maybe there is some truth to the micromanagement of the mayor. That's what I'm saying.
No, I don't think it's an unreasonable conclusion to draw. I just don't, like I said, I'm just not familiar with the specifics, but I do say obviously it does, optically it doesn't look great, but
right. Because let's say, for example, Marcus, the police chief was in there for 10 years and now wants to change the scenery. They say, maybe he's close to retirement.
But Chief Oliveira hasn't been the chief for that long, but he's been he's been at the New Bedford Police Department in a higher ranking position. He's been there for a long time. That's how he became the chief.
I understand.
He wasn't an outside hire. So he's he's been there for a while.
Well, you're right. I understand that, but I'm saying, but he's the head of the police department outside the mayor, obviously. But it kind of the rumblings you've been hearing from the previous chief and the new one, this micromanaging thing, there might be something to it. That's all I'm saying.
It could be. I don't think we'll ever. We might never get the full picture of that because I don't expect that.
We definitely need to clean up the crime problem. It's like I told. I think it was Tim this morning.
Yeah.
A very well written speech by the mayor. Had various layers to it.
Yeah.
Like a layer cake. And I have exception to some of the things that are stated there, including the crime in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And the mayor admitted it himself. There was one typo because I listened to the broadcast.
Yeah, we played it here on WBSM. Yeah.
Yeah. Now my question to you is: did he write it himself, or did he have somebody else write it and do the final draft?
The speech?
The speech. It was.
He wrote it himself. Yeah. No.
You sure about that?
Yeah. I talked to him. He was in studio with Chris and me. He was in studio with Chris and me, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And he said that he told us that after he was going to write. He writes it himself. I mean, a lot of times when you have speeches like that, yeah, you have comms people and all that they may double check. But if you're
Maybe his wife proofread it and made it some corrections.
I mean, yeah, maybe his wife's a smart person. He's got smart people around him. He's got a chief of staff. He's got communication staff. So maybe they did.
But Marcus, let me just say, to the mayor's credit, he did it well. It was well written.
Yeah,
it was layered, and he described everything, line by line. But let me just say, in full disclosure, I don't believe everything that he wrote. But I'd give him an A+ for the structure of his speech.
Hey, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
All right, Marcus, you have a...
All right, 508-996-0500. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
What's up?
Not much. That's the guy called Blueberry. Remember when we were kids, that commercial Blueberry and Frankenberry?
The cereal?
Yeah, I'm not insulting the guy. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, but I do enjoy listening to him sometimes. But he just reminds me of that ghost on that cereal box, his voice.
Yeah.
Anyway, no offense. I mean, I'm not insulting him or anything like that. I read something very interesting. Both Biden and Trump are very unpopular right now.
Yeah.
Meaning people would prefer somebody else than either one of those two.
Mm-hmm. That was the opinion in 2020 as well, but that's just not the reality.
No, I don't know what's going on. What's up with that Kennedy guy? How's he doing?
Yeah, I don't think that's a serious campaign. I don't think he's running a serious campaign or he's mounting a serious challenge against Joe Biden. They're not even entertaining it. They're not even holding debates. They already committed that they're not holding debates. Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Oh, God. Flip a coin.
Hey, I got to take another call. I appreciate it. 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcus.
How's it going?
Good.
Great.
The reason I'm calling in, Marcus, is you're rattling my cage.
Why is that?
This is not to get into an argument with you whatsoever. I listened to your entire monologue.
Okay.
The impression that I'm getting is that the new sheriff, Paul Heroux, would like to make the Bristol County House of Corrections more prisoner-friendly. That's my impression.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know, and I don't have an exact number, perhaps you do, that like $250,000 in damages is making it more prisoner-friendly.
Well, I mean, these things do happen. There was $1 million in damages in the Easter riot in 2001.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing it. I'm just saying I kind of understand the road he wants to go down. I get it. I've heard him talk about how they want to have a job fair. I believe it came and went already. I think it was April 25th. They want to do a job.
Yeah,
a job fair.
It did.
I don't know if they got any successful candidates. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on the job fair. I know he said the recruiting class was increased. It was 6 when he first started. Now it's 25. So the recruiting classes are a little bigger, for for sure.
I mean, I hope they're going in the right direction. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
But I gotta ask you this question, because I actually called in during the debates last November.
Uh-huh.
The question I want to know, my understanding is that Sheriff Heroux has he's got a correctional facility background. Am I correct?
He worked in the Philadelphia jails. He worked for the Massachusetts Department of Correction. He also consulted for jails and stuff before he became a state rep. Yeah. So.
Okay. My question is: was Sheriff Heroux, was he administrative or was he directly involved with the prisoners themselves?
I know that was a point of contention. I know a lot of what he did was data, right, in the Philadelphia jails. I think he did have actual inmate contact, though. I believe he talked about him having contact with the inmates in that pursuit, in whatever job responsibilities he had.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia, for the Mass DOC, I think he was doing more, administrative data collection stuff.
Okay. Marcus, I appreciate your time. I'm just trying to figure the whole thing out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's one of those things. He's trying to move these inmates. They're resistant to that change, and that happens. These things do happen. I think,
I believe that the new sheriff was sincere in what he was trying to do. I think he was trying to advance everything, but obviously it went awry. It just didn't, and what happens going forward, I guess what I'm saying,
Well, I think he's going to, the ultimate goal of that move was to, the ultimate goal, he wanted those units empty so he could retrofit them, and now they're empty. So, they're going to move on that. They're going to move on the other ones. And I guess, you hope when they move those other people to retrofit, to put locks and toilets in the other units that they don't respond similarly, I suppose.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing, but thank you for your time, Marcus.
Anytime. Thanks. 508-996-0500. I got to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Marcus Farrow. 508-996-0500 is how you can join me. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. At that, I'll be able to share those pictures once I get them from my camera. So when you go beyond the secure perimeter of the jail, you can't have cell phones and all that. So I have to upload that stuff from my camera. I just haven't done that. And the voice recorder. I just haven't been able to do that yet. I haven't been able to do it. I used to remember when I was practicing criminal defense, I used to have to check in all this stuff in the locker, and it was a huge pain. And you have to wait around sometimes. You don't have your phone to fiddle around with, just got to doodle on your notepad until your client gets there or until they let you leave. But, so that was basically the summation of what had went down at the Bristol County Sheriff's Office. Today at the House of Correction, and the incident that, they're hoping to get that video released as soon as possible. Obviously, again, they got to go through the proper channels, get the DAs and all that other stuff. So this like the ICE incident is going to be the handheld cam footage. It's the handheld cam footage. It's not going to be the security camera stuff. So I'm looking forward to being able to look at that a little bit more. But they are asking for money from the state. That's one of the reasons he invited all the members from the delegation and all that for I think an additional $5 million to put locks on all the doors, and toilets in all the cells of all the units that don't have locks on doors and toilets and cells. He said that was always it was a really bad design for a prison, and one that's, I guess, unique to the Dartmouth House of Correction, one that he's hoping to resolve. He seemed to be, what he said was with the budget, they had asked him $5 million is quite a bit. He goes, then he turns to Tony Cabral. He goes, Tony, how much is the budget? And he said, $60 billion. He goes, and Tony said $56.2 billion. And so he said, he said, we can, and Heroux said, I was a state rep. We can spend money on we can spend money on anything, but not everything. It's a matter of priority, because I think this should be a priority. It's something that's unique to Bristol County, too. It's not something the other sheriff's offices are going to demand, and he's hoping that's going to get done at some point. So 508-996-0500. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. This is South Coast Tonight.
1420 WBSM, New Bedford's News Talk Station.
Transitioning out of the military, it's difficult. Just about everything around you changes. I would get phone calls that brothers were dying, some of them to suicide. And I'd found myself in another cold cemetery. And I started to wonder if I was next. It's a struggle to know that you're facing challenges, but not be ready to face them. Sleep doesn't come easy. And when it comes, it doesn't last long. You're tired all the time. I didn't reach out for that help, but thank God my wife did. She got me registered for Wounded Warrior Project. Talking to somebody that would listen to me and understood my story helped me realize that it was time to change. There's a new fight. There's a new mission, and that's something I am eternally grateful for.
See how we help warriors combat stigma at woundedwarriorproject.org/combat stigma.
Veterans and their families are popular targets for financial fraud. Scammers may try to defraud you through misleading commercials, emails, texts, cold calls, or online ads. They may even pose as someone from VA or an organization providing discounts on fees for services. But VA will never charge you for processing a claim. Do not provide your personal information to anyone other than a VA-accredited representative. To find a representative near you, visit va.gov/find-rep.
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor, because that's a really important job. I would help kids get better and make everything super fun. I'd have a cool waiting room with games, toys, and a huge TV.
If your child is sick over and over again, it could be PI, a serious defect of the immune system. Early testing gives children a chance to dream.
And I'll give every kid a cherry lollipop, because that's the best flavor.
Jeffrey Modell Foundation, helping children reach for their dreams. Visit info4pi.org.
You never know who will call in to South Coast Tonight. But they want to hear from you most of all. Call 508-996-0500. Or use the WBSM app to send an app chat text message or leave voicemail.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500. In the 9 o'clock hour, New Bedford City Councilor at Large Ian Heroux is going to be joining us to respond to the State of the City address and talk about some of the goings on. So we'll talk to Ian at on the other side of the 9 o'clock hour. So you're going to want to stay tuned with that. 508-996-0500. Going to take one more break and we'll finish out the hour strong. Welcome back. Again, we're going to have New Bedford City Councilor Ian Heroux joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. He's going to talk about the state of the city and what he thought about it, and we'll have a good discussion on that. We'll take your app chat messages and we'll take your calls, 508-996-0500. That's how you can join us this evening. Take your messages on the app chat, and I'll see you on the other side of the 9 o'clock hour with New Bedford City Councilor Ian Heroux. So you're going to want to stay tuned because I think he's going to have a lot of interesting stuff to say about Mayor Mitchell's State of the City address. And then after, I can take your calls at 508-996-0500. Open phone lines after the interview with New Bedford City Councilor Ian Heroux. So we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Star Wars, Cinco de Mayo, the state of the city, the Bristol County Sheriff's Office, the jail. Nothing's off limits. I shouldn't say that. Some things are off limits. Use your discretion. But I'll talk to you guys at the other end of the 9 o'clock hour. Stay tuned. You're going to hear the national news from our friends over at ABC, and then you're going to hear the local news from our friend Kate Robinson and Phil Devitt after that, and then we'll be joined by New Bedford City Councilor Ian Heroux. So 508-996-0500, and I'll see you on the other side with Councilor Heroux.